All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first APAC community call of 2024. We have a packed agenda today. First of all, we're going to have MUI kick off APAC for 2024. And then we'll have our Odyssey Japan collaborator, Yoshihiro Aoyagi, to do a short, not short, but a training session by Japan, which was originally scheduled for last year, but it got pushed out to this year. But either way, we're happy to have our Odyssey Japan collaborators come on board with us and share whatever knowledge or information that they would like to share with the community. So thanks for that. And we also have very special guests from the U.S. side today. So the leaders from the Eye Care and Vision Research Working Group are here today, joining us live to give us a intro of what the work group is doing and some updates and developments from their end and how they would like to work together with the APAC community also. So thank you for that. So first of all, I'll hand over the floor to Mui. Mui, would you like to kick it off?
Cool. Thank you, Sam. Welcome everybody to 2024. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful 2023, enjoyed everything we accomplished in 2023 and looking forward to what we're going to do in 2024. So what does that mean? What in the world are we going to do here in APAC in 2024? Okay, we have a lot of stuff we're going to try to do. Okay, if you can go to the next slide. Always at the beginning of the year, we start thinking about what are our goals and what are we going to accomplish, right, as a group. So like always, we typically have 3 goals, about the same. So the first one we're going to really focus on is really about research and how to build the expertise and collaboration amongst the different chapters, through publications, right? We tried to do this last year. We did the SOS challenge last year, but what we wanted to actually try to do is conduct those similar type of studies and those similar type of exercises here in APAC. And then potentially maybe replicate Cindy. I don't know if Cindy's on the phone here, but what she did on the ophthalmology side, right? And I mean, that kind of fits well with Carrie and you guys being here from the Eye Care Working Group. So that's our first goal. If we go to our second goal, all righty, it kind of ties in, right? One's research, one's training. With the fact that, COVID is now somewhat behind us. I know it's the winter and everybody still has either the flu, the cold, or the COVID, one or the other. Although via the phone, we're not going to give it to each other, right? We want to try to do a bit more in-person gatherings above just the virtual settings that we have right now via the community calls, these SOS challenges and those. So we're going to try our hardest to try to host at least 2 in-person trainings in APAC. I know of at least one of them that's in the plannings right now, right? And hoping that some of those activities along with the SOS challenges will lead into, of course, our symposium, right? And then tied to the first one, we're going to try to train the community through some of these SOS challenges. So that's our second goal. If we can go to our third goal, it's always around communication and collaboration, right? Trying to get folks to join us, trying to get folks to work with us. One of the things we're bringing together is a lot of the different working groups to our community calls, like today with Carrie and team, right? Of course, we can't miss off by, December in our Singapore symposium, where Morning is going to treat us all up on the boat to a drink. You're never going to get away with that, Morning, okay? It's going to be like the quota of the year. And if you don't meet it, all right, next year, we're just going to keep talking about it as well, okay? Of course, we're going to do our normal with the distribution letters of our newsletters as well as these community calls. Now, we do have quite a packed agenda already for some of the community calls and the scientific forums around some of the activities that we're doing. But if you guys have other things that you want to hear, like last year, we had folks wanting to understand the vocabulary. So we actually invited the vocabulary people, right? The working group to come over and chat. Right. I heard interest like from the eye care. We heard interest from some of the other working groups that we're going to bring over as we go through the year. So again, we're trying to listen to what the community has. If you guys have more, please. I know you guys won't tell me right now, but email us works as well. WeChat, Kakao, at WhatsApp, Line, Viber, any one of those. Okay. Drop us a mail, Odyssey Teams. Drop us a note, and we will try to bring those people over to the APAC community. I'm going to stop there. Anybody got any questions? Anyone got any feedback for us? Are we going the right way, going the wrong way? You guys excited, especially with Singapore and drinking with morning? We're not excited about anything else, but just the drinking with morning. All righty. I am going to turn that out now over to Professor Aoyagi-san, I believe.
No, before
No.
that,
Oh,
Mui,
before that. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I have one more announcement to make, right? So
Yes.
it's traditional for us to highlight again when somebody in APAC gets featured on the Odyssey Global end. So I just want to highlight that Chung-Soo was featured in recent Odyssey collaborator. So collaborator spotlight. So we've had several folks in the APAC and to be featured here. Morning was there, Nicole was there. I'm pretty sure Mui was there at one time in her long life and involvement in Odyssey, right? So
and
yeah,
Chan.
and Chan, right, and Jing, and a lot of all the lovely Odyssey APAC collaborators right here with us. And Chung-Soo is here live as well with his screen on. Congratulations, Chung-Soo. I read through your interview, and I didn't know that you were actually playing golf. So that's so yeah, for everybody else, right? Chung-Soo is one of our very hardworking Odyssey collaborators in Korea, generating a lot of publications from the from Asia University. If you are interested to learn more about Chung-Soo and what he's doing and the hobbies he has, please check out the full interview at the URL below. Chung-Soo, if you have anything you want to say, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this spotlight, and I'm very honored to be there. And I'm just beginner for the golf, and I'm trying to enjoying, but golf also give me some more stress than research.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Okay.
So once again, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are you still in the US or are you back in Korea?
Sorry?
Are you still in the US or are you back in Korea?
I'm still in Korea.
You're still in Korea.
So it's the other way around, Mui. He's always in Korea.
Oh, he's always in Korea. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
you guys can play golf in Korea? Where do you guys go play golfing in Korea? Or in Seoul, I should say.
We also have many golf courses in Korea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Now we have to think about maybe the next Odyssey Korea Symposium will be at a golf course.
Oh my God, I'm terrible at golf.
For those who don't know the history, the last Odyssey Korean Symposium was in a ski resort.
Yeah,
so,
true.
So now we're gonna think about a golf course.
Okay, that's an idea. All right. Congratulations, Chung-Soo, again. That's the surprise spotlight that I just wanted to share with the rest of the folks before I hand over to the next agenda. So next we'll have Professor Aoyagi from Odyssey Japan's National Cancer Center Hospital East to give us a short, brief overview of the some knowledge sharing from Japan. So I'll hand over the floor to Professor Aoyagi now. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, I'm Yoshihiro from National Cancer Center Hospital East. Thank you for giving me this great opportunity today. So next slide, please. So today I will talk about the project of utilizing your data in Japan and its internationalization. The agenda is as follows. And first, I will explain about the internet, and then I will explain about internationalization task force. So I also explain about the derivatives of the task force. Finally, I will share my aspire for the future. Next slide, please. So actually, I'm today I little bit nervous. Can I? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So currently, the internet is focusing on developing a framework that allows us to extract good clinical data from core clinical research hospitals. To ensure the accuracy and reliability of data, they have implemented quality control methods. The final goal is to establish a comprehensive framework to integrate and analyze these data. Next slide, please. These are core hospitals for clinical research, and this is National Cancer Center Hospital East is a center. So these organizations are not only capable for functional as clinical care, but also of conducting clinical research and trials themselves, and developing pharmaceuticals and medical devices. And ReachNet is a group that is working to able to utilizing of real-world data with these hospitals at the center. Next slide, please. So these are the vision and mission of ReachNet. This is written at the end that our goal is to create an environment where we can conduct data-driven clinical research through our activities. We need to build an ecosystem that can answer a wide range of clinical questions. Next slide, please. To achieve this goal, we have 6 groups. Through collaborative group activities, we are developing a framework including vocabulary management and data integration and quality control. These 3 aspects are important for ensuring accurate and meaningful analysis of the extracted data. Now, originally, Japan has a standard storage called SSMix2 in front of the data storage. And we are thinking of utilizing this data as a center. And in addition, we think that it is necessary to prepare the environment for conducting international research. So that is where OHDSI comes in. Next slide, please. And I will explain about the activities of the Internationalization Task Force from here. The task force started in 2021, and among the various approaches to observational research, but we started the approach to OHDSI. And I have conducted various surveys until last year, and I will focus on this point. It is mainly for beginners, but I hope it will be helpful for you. Next, please. Actually, we understand the need for standardization when analyzing medical data from different sources. I think one of the ways to do this is to introduce OMOP CDM, which is used in worldwide. On the other hand, OMOP CDM is not widely used in Japan. So I decided to start by promoting OMOP within the internet and in Japan. So I thought there were two main approaches. One is to summarize and present essence of OHDSI in an easy to understand way. And the other is to actually build the environment and experience it for yourself. We have worked on both these things. Next, please. So next, I will explain the result of the previous activity. I plan to 4 major documents for this match. Today I will explain the 2 that have already been completed. Next slide, please. First, I will give you an overview document of OHDSI. This is something that many of you already know, but from this material, you will understand the benefits of OHDSI as an open science, and you will also see the use of standard vocabulary as a challenge in Japan. Furthermore, you will learn how to access materials to learn about OHDSI. Actually, I think the OHDSI website provides a lot of information, but it is a little bit too much for beginners. So I wanted to make it compact so that beginners in Japan could get the materials easier. The next slide, please. So next, I will explain the materials on how to introduce and use the OHDSI tools. I focused on these 5 tools. In Japan, there are challenges to whether EHR data can be converted not only to OMOP, but also any data models. So they were interested in what we should do for data conversion. So I wanted them to explain the process of converting and data at first. And this is why the tools for data quality assessment are next step now. So next slide, please. So I will show you the screen capture of the document. Basically, you can insert the tools by following the steps. And I think it will be easier to use visual. I think it will be easier to use virtualization technology such as Docker, but we have made it this way, considering the network situation of hospitals in Japan. So we have not mentioned it here, but we also have some information on how to use Atlas and HDSI and some analysis methods. Next slide, please. So finally, this is summary. The OHDSI document is delivered into 2 parts. One is about the setup, and the other is about the operation procedure. There is a sample data eunomia, so you can do some nice training. So next slide, please. These documents read from the OHDSI Japan website, and you can get an overview in other language than Japanese with machine translation. So please, if you want to read it, please. In the next slide, please. So in the future, actually, the attention to OHDSI in Japan is rapidly increasing. At the recent conference, I heard the word OHDSI more often. But on the other hand, I have not yet reached the point of the converting data or performing analysis. So there are several reasons for this. I think the term conversion part is one of the biggest challenge in Japan. So I also think that the support from IT companies or CROs is necessary. So finally, I hope you to do some research and to share good result this year. So please contact communication with us. So next slide. This is our last presentation from Japan. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aoyagi-san, for the wonderful sharing session today. So it's interesting to see how a lot of hospitals are joining the RINCHNET initiative, and how this initiative is interested in using OMAP for their international research purposes as well as local research purposes. And the documents that you've translated, I think it's hard work, but it really helps out the local people to have more, it's easier to read local language than English, right? So
Yeah.
thank you for that effort
Yeah,
to the
thank you very
OHDSI
much.
Japan
Yeah,
collaborators.
thank you very much.
Anything else from the community? Any questions for Aoyagi-san? Okay, I'm taking the silence as no. Then I'm gonna hand over the floor over to Carrie, Sally, and Michelle. I believe all of them are in the call right now live. Despite the time differences, they've agreed to join on the call live, guys. So thank you, all three of you, for being here today. And yeah, I'll hand over the floor now to Carrie or anybody else.
Okay, yep, I think I'm gonna take the reins here. Let me just get the right view. Okay, thank you. So my name's Carrie Getz. I work at the U.S. National Institutes of Health at the National Eye Institute, which is kind of an interesting place to work because we're very research focused, and we are not necessarily a place that has a lot of observational health data. We're not involved in providing day-to-day clinical care. We're definitely focused more on clinical research. And so I have been lucky enough to have a leadership position in our organization where I could engage with other partners, including Sally Baxter and Michelle Rybar. And I can share about what we've been able to do with this partnership that's kind of been a research-oriented observational health collaboration. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so we started our OHDSI working group in the spring of 2022. So we're a pretty young group. So Sally is one of the leaders of the American Academy of Ophthalmology's Data Standards Working Group. And Michelle Rybar has been doing a lot of research in this area as a true grant-funded researcher at Oregon Health and Science University. And so the three of us teamed up to kind of kick off this working group and started out in OHDSI. We recognized the need for this because of some work that all of us were doing in the All of Us research project. So the All of Us research project is a NIH-funded study that is it's aimed to collect observational health data, survey data, biomarker, genetics, kind of all sorts of different data types for a broad, diverse set of people within the United States. Their goal is to collect this broad data on 1 million people. And Sally has been doing some research in the All of Us data set, and I had kind of like played around with the data for a while and just to see what kind of eye-related information was in there. And we realized like it's kind of lacking. And what we found as a root cause of that is because a lot of eye care information is not mapped to the OMAP Common Data Model, which is what All of Us uses to input a lot of that information into that large research data set. So we saw this as a need, and so that's what kind of gave us impetus to launch this working group. So the goal is to create large, diverse data sets that have ocular information. And I should also add, because you might not be aware, in the United States, eye care is kind of separate from general health care. In the United States, a lot of people have health care, and then they have to pay extra for vision care. They have to pay extra for insurance to cover their vision-related eye exams and get glasses and things like that. So it ends up being kind of a side system, right? Like a lot of people who have electronic health records will have a separate module for eye care. And that's very much tailored to the practitioner's needs. And so it kind of creates a siloed environment. So we can't really get some of that observational data related to eye care that if you had a system that was incorporating all of your health would incorporate. So just a little bit of background and about how that's provided. Same with dental care in the United States. It's kind of just a separate system from the rest of our healthcare. So that's problematic, but something we wanted to kind of tackle. And we want to bring all that in together because your eye health is related to your whole body's health. All right, next slide. Okay, so so again, ophthalmic data is not completely represented even in standardized terminologies and an OMOP. So a big part of what we were doing initially is just to see how much coverage there is in the common data model for eye-related information. Where do we need to beef up our source vocabularies? A lot of fields in eye care are free text fields. So how can we use natural language processing to sort through those notes and things like that? We also rely heavily on imaging in eye care. It's ironic to say, but eye care is a very visual field. We rely a lot on photography. So not only can you take a picture of the back of the eye pretty readily, but you can also take scans within the eye that really helps share a lot about what's happening in your eye health. And so we also were kind of, I think, early engaged in the OMOP imaging working group as well to try to incorporate that imaging that's so important to our field. All right, next slide. And just to go on about imaging, because personally, our office deals a lot with imaging and trying to bring that into research and healthcare interoperability. And so there's a technology called optical coherence tomography, which is essentially scans of the back of the eye or the retina. And this in the United States has won several awards just this year, including the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. In this picture, you'll see the three inventors of OCT, along with our United States President, Joe Biden. This is a pretty prestigious award, just to say that this kind of technology is really leading the way in eye care, and it's a very transformative technology. So we want to be sure we're bringing that along with us. Next slide. And just to say a little bit more about this technology and how it's leading the way in healthcare and advancing healthcare. So I actually had the privilege of presenting this technology to the president in November of 2023. And essentially, and this is a plug for joining the imaging working group if you're so interested in imaging. But we were able to use a device to capture retinal imaging. Essentially, at the push of a button, you can collect high quality imaging non-invasively from people. And this imaging has been showing great potential for predicting all sorts of things from neurodegeneration to cardiac events to cardiovascular events, because the eye is essentially a part of your brain. And because it's easily imaged, you can really make a lot of predictive analytics from that. So we want to be sure to incorporate that. All right, next slide. All right. So for our working group, since we're pretty new, we're going on our second year now. We have 122 people. About 40 of those are active, as you know. A lot of people sign up, and because of timing and other commitments, it's hard to keep up with everything. But we have a great group of people. Sorry. Ophthalmologists, optometrists, informaticians, vision scientists. I'm going to lose my voice here in a second. Hold on 1 second.
Terry, if you want me to take over, I can too, if your voice is.
Yeah, maybe for a couple minutes. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'll just kind of carry on from what Carrie was saying for the slide. So we have a very faceted group. We have some folks who are practicing ophthalmologists or optometrists, people who are informatics researchers, data scientists, and then we have these subgroups because it quickly became apparent that there were some people who were interested in working on sort of specific areas relevant to their clinical area or research area. So some of our subgroups include a retina-focused subgroup, glaucoma subgroup, uveitis a subgroup, which is a form of inflammatory eye disease, a pediatric ophthalmology subgroup, and then we have a couple of groups that are focused more on tasks rather than clinical areas. So an ETL subgroup that's focused on sort of coordinating, setting up a data network and multiple institutions, getting, eye data into OMOP at their various institutions and trying to collaborate on those efforts. We have a subgroup also focused on imaging and working on having, imaging data from our imaging devices and eye imaging devices specifically incorporated into the OMOP medical imaging framework. So the numbers on the bottom half of the slide just show about, our number of work group meetings. We also have had a number of in-person meetings alongside our ophthalmology and vision research conferences. And then, in addition to our general work group meetings, we have the subgroups meet fairly regularly. I would say most of them meet about once a month. And then many ad hoc meetings in between. Next slide. Yeah, so this was kind of, again, just things we had put together for the OHDSI Symposium last year to give a sense of some of the work that's been done so far. We looked at over 3,700 ophthalmic data elements from a number of, commonly used EHR systems for ophthalmology, and did a gap analysis to look at what was already represented in OMOP concepts versus not. And then now, after having identified many of those gaps, we are sort of chipping away at filling those gaps so that there's better representation of eye-related data in OMOP. So some of these included condition codes, some include, sort of more like observation codes. Like for glaucoma, we found a number of areas where there were kind of concepts that were missing. And a lot of those we have kind of worked with source vocabulary systems like SNOMED and LOINC to develop those out, knowing that those would subsequently be incorporated into the OMOP CDM. Next slide. So this is an example of the gap analysis, a figure from our gap analysis paper, where when we looked at the data elements from the EPIC electronic health record system, which is the most commonly used EHR in academic centers in the US, there was only an equal match in the OMOP CDM for about a quarter of those data elements. And then you can see down here, that wider mappings were very common. And then about 1/5 or 20% approximately, were unmatched or had no equivalent concept at all. And we did further categorize these in terms of whether they were missing laterality or a particular more granularity or specificity with that concept. So this gives you an overview of kind of some of the gaps that were there in our domain. And we did publish this in Ophthalmology Science. The link is down here for anyone who might be interested in checking that out. Next slide. Oh, Carrie, I see you're back. Do you want to talk? Oh, yeah.
You're doing so good.
Okay.
You go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
can go
Sally.
if your voice is sore. Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. I can
So
pick up at the end.
Okay. I know Mui mentioned Cindy's SOS challenge study at the beginning. So this is a little more information about that. Cindy is a faculty member at Johns Hopkins, who is also a work group member. She, was a close collaborator for that gap analysis that I just showed one slide earlier. But she was selected for the SOS challenge this past year to look at the association between use of intravitreal anti-VEGF injections. So these are injections that we deliver to the eye for a variety of conditions, including macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, retinal vein occlusion, and so forth. They basically are meant to treat only the eye and the sort of blood vessel problems that happen when you have those conditions in the eye. But there is a certain amount of systemic penetration, meaning that the medication can go to the rest of the body and can potentially cause problems there. So prior studies have looked at things like, heart attack and stroke, but kidney injury was one that was not as well studied. And so Cindy's proposal was to see whether there was a significant difference in the rate of kidney injury across, 3 different medications that are a similar class, but they have, some slight variation. So the question was, can we use the data to understand which would be, if there are significant differences, that may help inform the clinician, which medication to give for a patient, particularly if they have an underlying risk of kidney injury. And so she, put this together in very quick time. And I think that was one of the benefits of the SOS challenge, was being able to collaborate across the OHDSI network, go through kind of installing the packages and running the packages, using the tools, and really designing and deploying the study in a relatively short amount of time. And overall, the results were that there were no increased risk of kidney injury associated with these medications, and that there were no significant differences across the medication. So you can see in the figure there are pairwise comparisons between the 3 medications that were looked at. And I believe each of these bars is sort of the participating site, with the red bar being the meta-analysis across all sites. So Cindy's together that manuscript, and that really leveraged, network data across the OHDSI network. For this particular study, there wasn't a need for a lot of eye-specific data, right? So she was looking at medication concepts for the anti-VEGF injections, and then for kidney injury, looking at things like creatinine and lab values and whatnot. So this wasn't impacted by the fact that, we have some gaps in the eye-related data elements, but just shows that even with vanilla OMOP, you can do specialty-specific work still, depending on the particular study question. Next slide. So another area our work group has been working on is developing phenotypes. And we have a number that have been submitted to the How Often phenotype library that's part of OHDSI. And so this is just kind of a summary. They cross, multiple areas of ophthalmology. Next slide. And then, another thing that we've been working on is just trying to disseminate what we've been working on, getting engagement from, our specialty society, different vision research groups. We've put out publications, including in peer-reviewed journals, as well as this online forum called iWiki, which is kind of meant to be like an encyclopedia or Wikipedia, but specifically for eyes and ophthalmology. So we put together a number of pages around data standards there, and working on quite a few more. We've encouraged our work group members to submit their work to various conferences and symposia, and including, the American Academy of Ophthalmology, the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology, the OHDSI Symposium, and imaging conferences as well. And in terms of support and kind of trying to work towards the capacity and sort of long-term sustainability of the work group, Michelle, who was mentioned earlier, she's an NEI, NIH-supported data scholar. So she has support through that to really lead a lot of our work group efforts. And then we're currently applying for additional grant funding to help kind of support what we're working on and really keep the momentum going. And next slide. So yeah, as Carrie mentioned, there are a number of large data sets from the NIH, and there's a big push at the NIH to include data standards as part of basically everything done there at the NIH. So, gone are the days where people would just have their custom data dictionaries and then have to reinvent the wheel for every research study. I think NIH is making a real push to try to incentivize researchers to adopt standardized terminologies and common data models in the work that is funded. And so AI Ready is one example. That's one that I'm actually involved in the active data collection. I oversee one of the data collection sites for that study. And this is looking at 4,000 patients with diabetes, doing a multimodal data set there. AIready.org is the website if you're interested in learning more. We will be releasing publicly the data from the pilot phase of the study in a few months' time, around April of 2024. And one of the nice advantages of that is that it's actually going to be internationally available. So for those of you in Asia Pacific who are looking for data sets to work with, this is one where there's not going to be restrictions. A lot of NIH funded data is only open to US institutions, and this is one that it will be broadly available as far as I understand currently. And then the All of Us research program, as Carrie mentioned, also it was limited to US institutions for a long time, and recently they have opened it to academic nonprofit organizations outside of the US as well. So that's another exciting opportunity, I think. And in that data set right now, it doesn't include ophthalmology specific data or imaging, but that is actively being worked on by the National Eye Institute and the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering, which is the NIBIB acronym here. Next slide. So one of our larger long-term goals is to build a data network for ophthalmology data. And I think, to the presentation about building a network in Japan, this is a similar idea. We are very lucky in that in the US, there are many institutions who have already adopted OMOP in their health system and have an OMOP data warehouse for electronic health record data. As I said, one of the issues is that for us in ophthalmology, it can be very specialized data, and it's often not included in those institutional data warehouses because it's not part of sort of foundation or vanilla OMOP. So there's a little bit of extra legwork that needs to be done to get that eye-specific data into OMOP and part of those data warehouses and part of those networks. So that's what we're sort of trying to work on is building those relationships and trying to get that eye data as part of the general OMOP data warehouses, and also looking at imaging, which even outside of ophthalmology has not been extensively developed at most places just yet. But I know the OMOP Medical Imaging Group is very active, and there's a whole set of conventions there, and so we're adapting that for ophthalmology and piloting that as well. Next slide. And then, looking at different use cases, why we think standardized ophthalmic data is important. I think we're probably preaching to the choir here, which is, everybody here already knows why OMOP is important, but these are some examples for, specific cases in our area where we're really trying to understand for eye disease, including rare diseases, public health applications, looking at AI models and so forth. Next slide. Right, so just looking at our next steps, we are piloting some ETL processes for high yields or super common eye data elements like intraocular pressure and visual acuity. As I mentioned, we're integrating, trying to integrate imaging and using some of our ophthalmic imaging modalities as pilot use cases for the medical imaging extensions that have been developed recently. You know, we are always growing our work group, and as Carrie mentioned, if there are folks here who want to get involved, please let us know. We're always happy to have more people and also make sure that whatever we're developing works for more settings and not just, you know, our institutions. We're hoping to do more network studies like what Cindy did with the SOS Challenge, and also get more funding and support so that we can keep these efforts going long term. Next slide. Carrie, this is probably, you can talk about this since I was
yeah, so just wanted to kind of wrap up this presentation with some news about Asia Pacific related work that we're doing. Like, we really do want this to be a global effort and not just the United States. So we had the pleasure of meeting with some like-minded folks in Hong Kong on December 10th. So Mui was there. I invited Mui to do the keynote almost presentation about why the common data model is so important to research. And so I presented, and also Michelle Rybar, our the third co-chair of this group. I think it was well received. We showcased the SOS challenge that you guys did in the APAC chapter, as well as Cindy Kai's presentation or work from our working group. And we got a lot of good input. There's a lot of folks in Singapore and Japan that were really interested in getting on board with this. So we're just now focusing on what are the next steps and getting people committed to join us. But we're hoping to have a similar meeting, like ophthalmology-based, standardization, observational health research focused meeting in Singapore, hopefully next year. Maybe we can join with the APAC group. So I'm pushing for that a little bit to try to get more involvement by the people who are interested in research in ophthalmology that were at this meeting. So just wanted to kind of wrap up with that, and hopefully there's a lot of new collaborations that are forged among these groups. All right, and so next slide. So just wanted to say, if any of you have connections to people who are interested in eye care, vision research, or imaging, we encourage you to join us. There's a QR code on how to join our working group, but you guys all probably already know how to join the OHDSI working group. So we encourage more collaboration, and let us know how we can help you. And we're looking forward to working with the APAC chapter even more. And Sally didn't mention, but she's actually in Japan right now. So, you know, she's like in the APAC chapter anyway. So with that, I'll just wrap up. And if anyone has questions or input for us, welcome it.
Mui has her hand up.
No, I was just wondering, Sally, are you in Japan for like the whole year, or are you just there
just
for
a few more
vacation?
months.
Few more months. Define a few more months. April?
Until the summertime, then I'll move back to the US. We're temporarily stationed here. My husband's in the Navy, so we're in Yokosuka, Japan.
Well, we may be doing something in Japan in April.
Okay,
keep
me
so
posted.
that's why I'm asking whether or not you're gonna. Maybe you can join us in April.
Yes. Yeah, would love to.
Awesome. Well, thank
Assuming
you.
I'm not in the US, I am going back to the US in mid-April for our ㅍTraining consortium meeting. So still do a lot of travel back to the US.
Yeah, mid-April might be the timing here. So
yeah.
We'll stay in touch, Sally.
Yes.
And hopefully we can have you. If not, we'll find another time in the future. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Carrie, Sally, Michelle, for being here today. Anything from the community that we want to ask, comment, question? answer? Okay. We are very shy people, Carrie, by the way. It's we don't really speak out. I also don't normally speak out. It's against my nature to be doing this right now. But yeah, guess what work forces you to do, right? So
And
yeah,
I'm easy to find. If you want to email off, off camera, that's fine too.
yeah. So if you guys have any questions for Carrie, Sally, or Michelle, please either reach out to them directly, reach out to me. I can be your channel to help you get connected with these people. Again, thanks, Carrie, Sally, Michelle, for being here. I think, one reflection from my end is the Cindy's SOS challenge study. You commented that it didn't really require eye-specific information. And I think it's what really works here is you start off with what you have, and then you start to enhance and add on more specialty specific stuff, right? So I think the approach you guys are taking is really great. It's really workable and really shows and showcases how OMOP can be used for specialty specific research. So I think that study there is impressive, and I think personally I'll be looking forward to the manuscript that Cindy and you guys are currently working on. So yeah.
Yeah, Song, I'll just say, like, in addition to that, like, it's really helpful. So being someone who's in the US government and like trying to convince people why this is important, like those kind of early wins and nice complete stories that are easy to explain go a long way. So yeah, it's many of those little stories that you can include in getting people on board. It's so very, very helpful.
Yeah,
I think it's actually a nice story to tell, even for the APAC friends that are new to OHDSI and that are looking at joining the OHDSI community, right? Like the Thailand chapter, even the India chapter that's recently joined, right? I think in Asia, our culture is we want to always be the best at everything, so we're going to strive to do everything perfectly. And this really showcases, what Cindy did showcases that maybe we don't always have to try so hard. Sorry, Asian colleagues here, right? Speaking for myself as well. And that we can take things one step at a time and try to do the simpler stuff to showcase that return from a business term, right? A justification or why we should do something like this, right? And then try for the next big thing and then try for the next big thing. I think it's a great story that we can tell, especially here in the APAC side.
There's something they say about culture change, which is about early wins and celebrating early wins. And so I always like to think of that too, like try to get an early win. It doesn't have to be the end all be all best thing ever, just something small that you can continue to showcase and highlight as an early win.
Yeah, I'll just add, one of the first study I did with the All of Us data set, we actually had that same finding, which was that like we created a predictive model for glaucoma progression. And I had one study that was with just the our single center data, like just from our university. And then when we used the All of Us data set, because it was such a big data set, it used OMOP, was able to harmonize data from across the country, it did a lot better. And I think that even though it wasn't a perfect model, like it didn't include all these eye-specific features that we usually put in our AI models, because that was limited. Like we just had, systemic conditions and diagnoses and systemic medications and so forth. But actually, we ended up getting really good performance with it using the All of Us data set. I think a lot of that was because of the size of the data set and the ability to leverage data from across the country. So that was, a win, and I think a clear reason why something like OMOP is useful. And you could, particularly if you have community members from like smaller countries in Asia, or maybe places with maybe not as much research infrastructure, then being part of a larger network where you can leverage, the whole region, I think you get similar benefits, right? That you have larger sample sizes and ability to analyze more data at once. So I'm happy to share that link with folks, although I don't think I have access to the chat. I can find it. I'll
Okay, you
send
can
it over.
email it to Song and Song can send it out to everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm your receptionist, guys. Both ways for our speakers as well as our APAC community. So yeah, but I have feelings, right? So don't trouble me too much. I'm just kidding, guys. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'll be happy to connect you guys with Carrie and Sally. So if nothing else from the community, I guess we can close off the call for today. I think we had a good full hour. Mui, anything you want to say or okay?
Happy 2024. That's all I can say. All right.
Happy New Year. I forgot to say, right? Happy New Year.
Oh, we'll say it again in a month for
Right,
those
right,
that are on the lunar calendar, right? We'll
right.
say it again in a month. So,
Yeah.
all right.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.